You're listening to the Ricky Long Podcast.
You, Mr. Ricky Long, you've now had 150 grams of food, carbs. You've had 50 grams of inter-carb drinks.
Yeah.
So you're now closer to where you need to be. You will feel better. You'll recover better. Your classes will be better. It's a win-win. And as I said a few times on other videos I've done, most of the kind of drinks will also have electrolytes. And electrolytes are very, very, very handy. When you sweat, you as you all know, if you've ever done pump, attack, combat, or literally any Les Mills class, we sweat a lot as instructors, okay? So you're losing electrolytes. And why electrolytes are important, it's all to do with chemical reactions, to do with the central nervous system, to do with memory, coordination, all this kind of stuff. So when you get a memory, brain fart, when you get cramp, all that kind of stuff, it's because you're low in electrolytes, okay? So having a drink that's high in electrolytes is really, really handy as you're sweating. It's like a win, 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 and a win because it's cheap, it's easy, it makes common sense.
You're listening to the Ricky Long Podcast, where international fitness entrepreneur Ricky Long answers your questions and interviews fitness leaders on training, nutrition, and mindset. Ricky is a fitness industry expert, having been helping people achieve their fitness goals since 2002. We talk everything fitness, business, and group exercise to help you on your fitness journey.
Episode number 60 of the Ricky Long Podcast. Thank you so much for downloading this, streaming this, listening to this, whatever you're doing, listen to this, stop right now. This podcast is going to be absolutely fantastic value for you. You need your full attention on this entire podcast. You might want to get the notes section open in your phone. You might want to get pen, paper. Hey, you might want to go a little bit old school. Get a chalkboard, get some chalk, get some water, clean the chalkboard, because that was the best thing about a chalkboard. Remember when you were in school and you were chosen to clean and wash the chalkboard for your teacher, and you just thought you were dog's balls, and really the teacher was just being really, really lazy and delegating basic tasks like cleaning her shit. So you were designated to clean the whiteboard for your teacher. I don't know how we got here. We're kind of in a weird place right now for the start of this podcast. This podcast, like I said, is episode number 60, and I am bringing on a good friend, a guest for this one, Mr. Tim Meadows. And it's the second time Tim's been on the podcast. We've only had a couple of people appear twice on the podcast. We've had Rory O'Connor, we've had Tim Meadows, and we've had Lindsay Morrison all appear twice on the podcast, and this episode is a continuation of Tim's last episode he did with us. So if you haven't listened to that, it is worthwhile you listening to that. Listen to that after you've listened to this one. Don't stop listening to this podcast. Don't go back and listen to that one. Just put it next on your list. So I've put that in the show notes. And the reason why Tim's on this podcast is this weekend, the weekend coming, as I stall just for a second so as I can get the dates in my head, the 25th of October 2019 and the 27th of October 19, Tim is doing a webinar for Les Mills UK, and it's all about nutrition for instructors. And listen, I'll be very honest with you, as soon as I found this out, I thought, how can I get him on the podcast beforehand to chat about nutrition for instructors, to serve you, the listeners here, and maybe get a few more people booking on those webinars. So basically, I am just stealing content for my own podcast, and you are going to benefit from that. Before I hand over to Tim and my chat, we'll speak for about an hour over a number of things. We'll kind of go back and forwards on a lot of things. I had a list of questions I was meant to ask. Probably only asked about half of them because we just started chatting. There is a break about 10 minutes into the podcast, so look out for that. What happened is the internet connection completely just gives up on us, so we had to abandon the podcast and start again about half an hour later. It's quite obvious when it happens, and I've edited it. I have edited it in a special way for you. So look at a special way, like I'm some kind of editing genius. I am, but the way I've done it, you'll really. Anyway, the point is, it has been edited in the middle Not in the middle, 10 minutes into it. Look out for that. Apology in advance. Technology was not our friend. Before I hand over, a couple of things I need to tell you about. I have got myself a new job. Now, when I say a new job, I'm an entrepreneur. So there's people who are employees, there are people who are entrepreneurs, and there are people who are entrepreneurs. Now, if you're an employee, you basically do what your boss says. If you're an entrepreneur, you are the boss. You can come and go as you please and run all your own projects. An entrepreneur is when you're kind of employed. Either you've got a set salary or you've got a contract to perform and reach agreed goals. And you can do that any way you like. So I am the don't even know what I am. I'm the product manager for Only Just Media by Only Just Lucy for Only Just Fit. Wow, there's a lot of things in there. So Only Just Lucy runs a company, good friend of mine. Only Just Media is the company, and branching out of that is Only Just Fit. What is it? It is a series of fitness events for social media, fitness business, specifically for fitness professionals. If you're a personal trainer, if you're a gym owner, if you are a group fitness instructor, you want to get yourself involved in these events. The first one, November 27th, tickets are on sale. Tickets are on sale now, pre-sale tickets. Pre-sale tickets stop on the 30th of October. The link is in the show notes. Have a look. It's in Belfast. If you're listening to this in the not mainland, so Northern Ireland is obviously the mainland. The not mainland is England, Scotland, Wales. And you want to come to this event, it's going to be on a Wednesday. It's going to be 10 in the morning-ish to 4 in the afternoon-ish. 6 hours. You can fly in and out of Belfast. Belfast has 2 airports. I shit you not. You can fly in and out for less than 100 quid. Tickets are less than 100 quid, a lot less than 100 quid, especially if you book it as soon as you listen to this. And that's all tax deductible. We'll even give you a little bit of food, a little bit of coffee, get you through the day, have some chat, have some crack, and listen, if you don't enjoy it, you can write a review on our social media page and say it was shit and you'll never be back. But you won't say that because it's going to be really good and I'm going really, really high pitched. The second thing I'm going to tell you about is let me just tell you about Jump Christmas Shred. So we're going to do a 6-week Christmas Shred starting middle of November, finishing a couple of days before Christmas. It's a Christmas Shred. So what are we going to do? We're going to train really hard together. We're going to eat really well together. And we're going to do lots of mindset drills to make you feel in positivity, confidence, self-awareness. And the whole way through the Christmas Shred, I'm going to apply all the principles I do in the Jump 4.2 program, which is education and community building as we go through it. That link to find out more details is also in the show notes. Now listen, if you go and click that link, you'll basically just get an email saying you've clicked this link, you're on the list. Details about that are going to come out at the beginning of November, and you'll be able to say yes or no in the middle of November. So even right now, if you're just a little bit, right, 6 weeks, I've heard Ricky Long talk a lot about Jump 4.2. I don't really know if it's any good or not. Get yourself on the email list, because why would you not? In that email list, I'm also going to give you a couple of what we call values. So there's going to be free value, a couple of free workouts, a couple of new nutrition ideas, etc., etc. So please do look out for that. And then the last thing I want to tell you about is, if you haven't already heard, I'm doing an Ironman. Ironman training's going well. Please, please, please have a look at the various YouTube videos and Instagram TV videos that I'm going to be releasing. Finally, this episode, like all episodes, is sponsored by Podium for Sport, Northern Ireland Sports Retailer of the Year, who are also sponsoring my Ironman expedition to Lanzarote. Big shout out to Podium for Sport. If you right now went on to Instagram and liked Podium for Sport and commented on their most recent post, just tell them Ricky Long signposted you here. That does the world and universe of networking absolute wonders. I guarantee you, if you do that for me, something good will happen to you today. Without further ado, handing over to the one, the only, Ricky Long. That's me, and his mate, Tim Meadows. That's him. Thank you.
You're listening to the Ricky Long Podcast.
And welcoming back onto the Ricky Long Podcast is good friend, expert nutritionist for group exercise instructors, Mr. Tim Meadows. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very well. And yourself, Ricky? How are you?
I'm good. We were just chatting before. I think it was episode 39 you were on before. I'm
Yeah,
trying to think. It was probably about 2 months ago now.
roughly around about 2 months, I'd say. Yeah.
Awesome. So what I'll do is I will put that link in the show notes for everyone to listen to. But just in case people haven't listened to that episode, why don't you introduce yourself and give us kind of an update on what's been happening since your last appearance on the Ricky Long podcast?
Yeah, sure thing. So for those who know me, my name is Tim Meadows. I am a nutrition coach specifically for group fitness instructors. And since last speaking to Ricky, have jumped on with a lot more, taking on one-to-one clients, retweaked and readjusted Group X nutrition as well for something a bit more accessible for everybody, and just been putting out a lot more kind of content, really listening to everybody's kind of sort of issues and struggles, and really purposefully, putting content out there specifically to help anybody and everybody that's willing to literally listen to my chat, rants, and everything else. So it's been really good. It's been really busy. Lots of good discussions going on, and it's resulted in I think a bit more awareness for the need of nutrition specifically designed for instructors. It all works off the fundamentals of nutrition anyway. There is no magic potions that I've managed to create or anything like that. I know it's Halloween coming up, but I've not created anything that wasn't there before. It's just more the awareness, and it's more about education and giving clients and group instructors literally simple, applicable things to think about and plan around the week, around the teaching, around the kind of training, to obviously make a difference, stop feeling shattered, knackered, low energy, confused about foods and all that kind of stuff, and just give everybody a bit more, it's a cross between education and empowerment, just to go out there and feel less anxious, less guilty, less worried, and go out there and enjoy their food, enjoy the nutrition, and just teach as best as they can. It's all about energy. It's all about, passion and layer 3, layer 1, layer 2 coaching is good, but it's the stuff in layer 3 that really makes it a bit of an experience, and gets people hooked and to come back next week. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, mate, I think.
Yeah, cool. And one of the things you said there about is the content you've been posting on your social media. And one of the things that stood out for me is it's become, and I love this, it's become a lot more specific, kind of directly to the group fitness instructor, the group fitness professional, and it's how they can, A, eat to serve what they're teaching, and B, it's kind of like you're kind of like on this one man kind of ramping page about debunking stupid fitness myths. I just love your kind of sarcastic, kind of graphic approach to it. There was one about piercing your nipples as well, which really, really sprung to mind. I can't remember what that was. Was that?
That was getting, rather having my nipples clamped than doing the Cambridge diet, basically. I just don't see the point why people want to make life so difficult for themselves. You know what I mean? And it's not because we choose to. It's just because there's so much. The polite word is misinformation, but the casual word is just bullshit. There's so much bullshit out there. It has confused us. It really has confused us. And we feel that we need to kind of jump from a diet to a diet. So if you want to improve your nutrition, the immediate answer is I need a diet. And then you look at the array of diets that we have, and then we try and pick one. But the big problem is, which is what I don't want to give too much away about the kind of webinar stuff, but one of the big points I'm going to be making in the webinar is that a diet, a energy restrictive diet, is not really what a group fitness instructor wants or particularly needs. So you have to choose the nutrition approach, aka diet or lifestyle, that's actually going to serve and be useful to you, boshing out 10, 15, 20 classes a week, plus possibly being quite active, plus possibly doing CrossFit WODs or doing other training and stuff. So, it's just that change of mindset and more like awareness that is really kind of needed. And sometimes, you and I both kind of know, there's the logic mindset and then there's the emotional mindset. And people generally react and will change more, will have more chance of changing with an emotional, angle than logic, if you know what I mean. So that's why, I mean, I consider myself relatively witty and relatively sarcastic anyway. So it happens quite naturally. Well, yeah, possibly. I guess, but yeah, so it has to come across in a way. It comes off real, natural for me. It's just the way that I talk and I interact. So yeah, as long as the message kind of goes through, and some people are kind of getting it, and it's really great when you get the feedback, back off of clients and instructors to say, I've actually lost a few pounds and I feel amazing. I'm not having my crashing naps during like midweek, and I'm using less Red Bull, less Monster, and I feel so much better. I'm looking better and I'm teaching better and I'm just loving life. And it's like, yes, welcome to, just eating for your lifestyle. Welcome to no nonsense bullshit, just a couple of big key guidance and fundamentals that we need to kind of stick to, but we don't need the extremism, food elimination, scaremongering, propaganda bollocks that we get compounded by off of, literally society and, literally everywhere we kind of turn, unfortunately, because we're quite a unique demographic. So
Man, I love when you go off on those rants, because it's so true. I just sit here and I have these flashbacks in my head of every conversation I've ever had with an instructor about diet and nutrition. And there's a million different faces going through my head. And I've had those conversations with myself a few times. You touched. We're going to talk briefly about it. So to give people context on listening to this, Tim is going to be doing a webinar specifically for Les Mills UK instructors. And as soon as I found out about this, I was like, "Oh, Tim, that's brilliant! I'm so happy that's being done. When can I get you onto the podcast so as we can talk about it, and hopefully people who listen to the podcast, who are obviously Les Mills instructors, will then go and book that webinar." So let's, first thing first, just so as people are really, really clear, when is the webinar and how do they book it?
There will be two webinars, one on Friday night and one on Sunday night. It'll be Friday the 25th and Sunday the 27th of October. So literally at the end of the week. Two webinars on at the moment. I believe the Sunday one is maxed out at 500 instructors booked on as of end of last week. And I think the count that we had for the Friday night one was around about 260, 270. So there's a few spaces left on the Friday night. Speaking to obviously with the office, there may be, depending how the week goes, maybe a need to put on a second one for Sunday. But I have heard, well, I've been informed, obviously, that everybody will be getting sent the webinar to their, email inboxes. So every Les Mills UK instructor will have access to the webinar the following week. I don't know exactly which day it'll get sent out, but you will have an opportunity to, sit down, put in the background, and get all of the sort of information that'll be coming across, even if you can't make the live webinar. Ideally, it'll be great to have on a live webinar because you'll be able to sort of interact with a few polls. You'll be able to ask a couple of questions. We will take a little break halfway through for a couple of questions. And we'll obviously, if we get 100 different questions, we'll not have an opportunity to answer every one. But if there is a main reoccurring theme coming across that everybody is looking to kind of get, then I can answer that right there and then. I've also intimated, obviously, to LMK that if there is, follow-on kind of questions, if there is feedback where, that was really, maybe I'm hoping it's going to be really quite insightful, really useful. And if there's still things that are still, kind of outstanding and other questions that still need to be asked, then quite happy to do, a follow-up video, follow-up webinar, follow-up article, anything on those lines, just to address, everything, as many things as possible.
Yeah, I'm conscious we don't want to, well, actually, yes, I am conscious about this, but I also want to steal as much content from you as possible to make my podcast as valuable as possible. But I do understand you might want to just hold a little bit back. One thing you said there did jump out is if there are any common questions that come through, what do you anticipate being, common questions? What do you already deal with a common question type of view from clients?
Yeah, the biggest thing always boils down to sort of energy, I'm wanting more energy, needing more energy. So the first part, I don't think it's going to weigh too much away. There's going to be two parts to like the webinar. And as with anything, it is dutifully sort of correct to start off with the fundamentals, to start off with the kind of baseline knowledge and the understanding about, energy balance. And it might be a bit, like, oh, energy balance, whatever. But without that kind of understanding, appreciation, nothing after then is going to be sort of applicable or understood unless we have that initial sort of grounding, I guess. So, the big takeaway there in the first part is going to try and just reiterate that if you are wanting to live a high energy lifestyle, you need energy. All right. Calories is a form of energy. The other way to measure calories is a thing called kilojoules. And if you come from a physics background, kilojoules is a measure of work. So work energy, it's all like relatable. If you want more energy out, you've got to put more energy in. It's simple as that. Okay. And there are only three macro, I don't know why I'm holding my fingers here, but there are only three macronutrients, that you can actually eat to help increase your total, energy intake. And it's protein, carbs, and fats, and the problem with the scaremongering is that, we're a bit fearful of protein because apparently it causes like kidney disease and all that kind of stuff, and it will kill you, Carbs are bad because of insulin, and sugar causes obesity, so we don't have carbs either. And then fats. Well, fats has always been really bad for us, except in the last 2 years when we all went ketogenic and started putting butter in a coffee and started having avocados in every freaking meal. So unless you keto, it doesn't make a difference. But guess what? Keto calories still has calories at 9 calories per kilogram. So the end point is that we have these three macronutrients. The big takeaway is that they all serve a purpose. They're all there for like a reason. They all have a unique structure. They all help us in a unique way. So to try and take one of them out for no reason is just like shooting yourself in the foot. You're just making it harder than you really kind of need to be. It's like if you normally do the body pump squat track with 30 kilos, it's like putting 50 kilos on just because. And then you're like, oh, I'm really struggling here. I don't know why. Well, because you made it harder than it really needs to be. So sort of thing. So it's that understanding of, more energy needs to come from somewhere. And there's no other way of getting more energy in unless we think about eating more kind of foods. So it's having that appreciation and then just figuring out how we can apply it throughout a day. So it's looking at kind of foods, a bit of meal timings, having a bit more of a flexible approach as opposed to being overly restrictive and overly focused on, like clean eating and stuff, where it can lead to more disordered eating and more eating issues and health issues if we only label foods as good and bad. And that's probably a whole different topic for another big kind of rant. But, foods aren't just good or bad. They'll not make you fat, make you muscle. I know it's mind blowing, isn't it? It's like, say what? It's like, actually, you can have a food that has lots of macronutrients, has lots of calories, which what you need. And it's like what I would call like moderate food value. Appreciate food value, and that's where micronutrients comes into it. So, from a technical point of view or scientific point of view, you have low nutrition foods that don't have many micronutrients. You have high nutrition foods that have, vitamins, minerals, fiber. But you can also have foods that are low nutrition but still have macros, still have calories. And that's kind of like a takeaway point. Of course, we want to be consistent and have the majority of our foods of high nutrition. But if you're hanging out your ass and you're doing 6 classes a day, a cheeky donut or 2 or pack of Jelly Babies.
We interrupt your normal broadcasting to bring you adverts from the Generation Game. I am completely joking. What has happened mid-recording, either on my end or on Tim's end, or we could blame the software that we're using. Basically, technology let us down. You can always rely on technology to do one thing, and that is let you down when you need it most. So Tim literally got interrupted kind of mid-flow. He was mid-rant, and I've decided the way I'm going to put this edit together, I'm going to let you kind of just hear the rawness of us kind of trying to catch up, work out exactly where we were on the podcast sheet. And the reason why I'm doing this for two reasons. Reason one, because I genuinely believe no matter who you are listening to this, you'll get the best value from hearing it this way. And the second reason I'm doing it, I've banged on about this long enough. If you are thinking about starting a podcast, it doesn't have to be perfect. The rawness and the mistakes and the ums and the ahs and the oh shit, I don't know what I was talking about. Sometimes they are the best bits of a podcast, and the message is always focus on the message, not the mess. So without further ado, here is literally me and Tim cutting and pasting, trying to pick up where we left off.
You're listening to the Ricky Long Podcast.
You said about jelly babies and donuts, and then, like I said, the internet's kind of just cut. So what I'll do, I'll just say right now, let the internet cut us down, cut Tim down in his prime there. But we're back and we've got our...
It's a conspiracy, Ricky. All the clean eaters are like, cut them off.
Oh dear. So we will continue on as if nothing has quite happened. And it was interesting what you said about clean eating, because you posted this on social media.
Yeah.
So, would you? What was your question? Would you agree clean eating is good, or a good way of measuring food?
Is it a positive and constructive, term?
Yeah, and you tagged me, and you tagged a load of other people in it, and I was like,
yeah.
Oh.
And surprisingly, I think around about 50 people had kind of replied to that one, but 91% said no, which I was really amazed at, because we see it and hear it all over the show. So it's maybe those 45 people on using it, but it's a term that we see all over the show. So I kind of think it's a bit of our fitness professionals' responsibility to try and get people into the right pathway. You know what I mean?
I completely agree, because as soon as I saw it, I try to think of every question now a little bit more objectively, and I'll normally in my life now, if I'm asked a question, I'll repeat the question, at least in my head, sometimes out loud before I answer it. It gives me time to think. And it was like, is clean eating a good measurable word? I'm kind of like, well, it depends on too many things. Because I'm like, well, if you're on 10 cheeseburgers a day, clean eating to you could be like 8 cheeseburgers a day. That could be your version of clean. And I think that, assuming the goals are to lose weight, tone up, to live a healthier lifestyle, 10 cheeseburgers a day isn't really going to serve a lot of people, no matter what the goals. So yeah, it depends on what your start point is now and what your goals are. And it's that, okay, so if that's clean eating, what's like the opposite of that? What's dirty eating? Because 10 cheeseburgers a day for me, that would be dirty eating, because that would not serve me. But one cheeseburger would not be dirty eating.
And that's the kind of problem, is that nobody knows what clean eating is. You can ask people what clean eating is, and you'll generally get, well, it isn't processed foods, right? And then you go, okay, wait, stop there. Let's talk about processed foods, because getting almond milk and yogurt and whey protein and refried beans and stuff like that in the kind of plant-based community. So whether you're plant-based or kind of inclusive eater, we do eat a lot of processed foods that actually people would argue are quite healthy or quite nutritionally dense. Yep. So processed is a bad word as well, because it's not inherently actually bad. Just because something is processed doesn't mean, even if you think about, so processed, again, it's like, if it's not clean, then it's processed. And it's like, well, again, that's not really bad and health, good, bad, clean, healthy kind of stuff. So clean eating, I think, I try to use the terms more like nutritional value. As appreciate that some foods are low, some foods are like moderate, and some foods are like really, really dense with, vitamins and minerals. And it goes to the micronutrient scale, so it's nutritional value. So if you're not eating clean, then the complete opposite is obviously, as you said, like cheap and it's dirty or it's processed. But if you think about the psychology of that, if you think about anxiety and about disordered eating and stuff, it creates this like guilt-ridden thing. This food relationship isn't a positive one. It isn't constructive. It's not intuitive. It's literally I'm eating this and it's going to cure me, or it's going to make me really lean or something. Or if I eat this, it's going to make me fat, unhealthy, slow, and everything else, and give me disease. It's like, no, not really. It's not quite as simple and black and white as that, if you know what I mean. So it's almost like when somebody asks you, like a PT, like, I want to come to the gym and I want to be more kind of toned. You kind of hear something, you go, that's not a real word, but I know what you mean, if you know what I mean. So I know people say, I want to be more toned, but what we're thinking is, all right, fat loss, right? You want a little less jiggle, okay? Right, so this is what we're going to do. And you try and not use the words lean and, muscle and that, because it'll just freak them out. It's much like kind of clean eating. People use the word, but, I kind of hear them like, right, I kind of know what you're saying. But here's an example, right? If you go on a diet, clean eating foods, and you stop losing weight, are you going to eat cleaner foods or eat less calories?
Are you asking me? Because I don't want to get this wrong. Are you going to eat
I'm just
cleaner
saying,
foods or less
right?
calories? Hold on.
So,
there's too many things I need to ask before I answer that.
so think about it. If somebody's like been eating so-called clean for like 2 weeks, right, and they've lost a little bit of weight, and then they just plateauing their kind of weight loss, and they're eating, say, 1,500 calories of clean, highly nutritional foods, and they've stopped losing weight, what is you as their PT or nutritionist going to do? Are you going to tell them that they need to eat cleaner foods or eat less calories? The answer generally is going to be like, you need to eat less calories or increase your activity. So energy balance, calories are the dictator, not clean foods, if you know what I mean. You can eat 2 McDonald's a day, say 1,500 calories. If your maintenance is 2,000, over the week, you'll lose weight. If you eat 3,000 clean calories of chicken, rice, and broccoli, you will fucking gain weight. It's because of calories. You know what I mean? That's unfortunately the thing. But we think clean equals weight loss. We think dirty equals fat gain. And when I work with general population, and fat loss is the kind of goal, one of the easiest and best ways that I bring back the results isn't telling people what they can't eat, is getting people to control the portion size. And I rather inflect the activity end of the scale than worry about their kind of calorie intake, like drastically, like overly. So instead of trying to cut the fuel and increase activity, as long as you tip the scale in one direction, you're going to get the required outcome.
Yeah, and that's what I do when I take on any new clients and when I bring people through my various programs. It's that educational. I don't have any kind of speech in and around clean eating. It's just educating people on. It's kind of, well, these are your calories, and these are the foods that you can eat. Sorry, not that you can eat. These are the foods that you already do eat. These are the foods that you like. Let's see how many of those foods we can fit into this week worth of calorie allowance. And people are often amazed by, because I'll sit there and tell people, eat this, eat this, eat this. And they're like, I can't eat that amount of food. And I'm like, well, you can, because it's in your calorie daily allowance. And let's see what you're prepared to eat. Let's see what foods might be, as you've just touched on, slightly denser in calories, slightly denser in nutrients, so you'll feel completely different. So the McDonald's diet or the Mars bar diets, people are amazed. Oh, how did this person lose body fat by eating McDonald's for 3 weeks? I want to do that. And it's like, well, it sounds good, but you would feel absolutely terrible from eating 1,500 calories worth of McDonald's every day, trying to do your everyday life. For the population who's listening to this podcast, whether you're going to be group fitness professionals, I mean, just do this. In fact, let's do this as an experiment. Ricky Long's telling you to do this, not Tim. Have a McDonald's like for breakfast and then for lunch, and then go and teach your classes that night. And just let me know how you feel, because I don't think you'll feel good. And if you do feel good, try it for a week and see how you feel. You might have dropped a little bit of body fat, but I'll tell you, you will not feel normal. You'll not feel human, and you'll probably piss a few people off just with your general attitude and anger in everyday life.
But that's why, like, the most popular fat loss diets for general population are generally higher in protein and higher in fruit and veg. So high fiber to keep you feeling full. Protein also sits in the gut a lot longer. So, it's not because the carb calories are bad, but it's the fact that you can have these foods that are lower calorie, but will keep you feeling full and not give you the kind of hungry feels. But as a GFI, sometimes when we're actually like needing fuel and we're needing quick fuel. As we know that carbs is our body's preferred energy source, you know, when we're working in the anaerobic energy zone, our fuel is fucking carbs. So, you know, to have, say, the majority of your carbs from, you know, your oats and your potatoes and your rice and your fruit and veg, 100%. But to purposefully not eat, say, a donut that's going to give you 400 calories, or not even 400 calories, 250 calories, just because it's a donut, you're going to end up leaving yourself worse off because you're not hitting your total, you know, calorie requirement. So if you're in a deficit all week, yes, you'll burn muscle tissue. Yes, you'll feel crap. Yes, you'll not have energy. So it's either 1,800 calories of high nutrition calories, 200 easy calories. That's the winner right there. That flexible approach for GFI, not for gen population who are 5 stone overweight. Very, very different. Yeah. You know, and that's the big kind of takeaway. That
if you listen to the first podcast we had with Tim, you will understand how hard Tim is actually trying right now to get a sponsorship with Krispy Kreme donuts or any donut companies who may be listening to this. We're not fussed. But it is that illustration. It's what did you just call it? It's easy calories because.
Well, I call it like an easy win. You
know,
I like that. It's an easy win. So imagine if everybody just kind of gave themselves, you know, a 200-300 calorie allowance of your favorite food, you know, and the focus is, you can call it, I've done it before, call it, you know, 80-20, call it whatever diet you want. You know, if everybody roundabout has, say, 3 meals over the week, that's 21 meals, right? If you have, say, 15 to 18 high nutrition quality meals, we do a bit of prep, bit of planning. It's based around, you know, like good protein and oats and potatoes and rice and all that kind of stuff, or fruits, vegetables. I mean, we all want fruits and vegetables. Nobody's ever said no fruits and vegetables, right? So never worry about the sugar from the fruits. High nutrition in the fruit and any vegetable, okay? Fiber and vitamin and the minerals, 100%. But to fall short of like 300, 400, 500 calories every day, that's why you're struggling. That's why, you know, when I put a post up on Les Mills UK official page, literally 80% was like more energy, right? More energy. Here's an easy win, you know, chow down on a donut now and again, or try have more food, or, you know, try eat foods. If you're teaching several times throughout the day as well, this is where the sports nutrition comes into a little bit. You know, you don't actually want foods that are going to sit in your stomach, because a few of the comments as well was like, I don't want to have a big meal sitting in my stomach. And I'm like, absolutely right. You don't want a big meal having sitting in your stomach if you're teaching several times throughout the day. You know, to have the higher GI foods. That's where the white rice and the white bread and those fruits can be very, very simple, like your cream rice and all this kind of stuff. That's where you actually want foods that will be in and out your gut within 3-4 hours. You don't want a general population, you know, high, overly high fiber and overly high fat kind of meal afterwards, because gut clearance is really, really important. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's why like your Sunday fry-ups, you'll feel really full for ages because it's high protein, high fat, you know, and you'll feel like stuff for a long, long time. So it's just having that cognizance of like, what do I need, you know, as a GFI? What do I need? What's my day today? Right? I'm teaching 2 classes in the morning. I'm teaching 2 classes at night. Well, if I have time, I need to have a decent meal, a decent breakfast before I teach, 1 to 2 hours beforehand. Cool. Go and teach. If you're struggling to get overall calories in, an intra-carb is an easy win. It's, as you call it, it's like a life hack. You're giving yourself 30 to 40 grams of purposely perfect fuel that you need in your body without having to eat it, without having to prep it. It's a drink, you know, it's such an easy win. And then within an hour or two, you have a good meal, protein and carbs, okay? Protein and carbs. And then 2-3 hours later, around about 3 or 4 o'clock, you have another kind of meal. And it can be like a baked potato, it can be a bean wrap, it can be anything. If you're plant-based or inclusive eater, anything that's got protein and carbs, again, because those are your performance and recovery macronutrients, 100%. Then you go teach your 2 classes at night, bang, if you're still suffering with energy, 30-40 grams of intra-carbs, go home at night. And you know what, after that day, I would genuinely happily say, go and have a pizza and a salad. You know, go and have, you know, a pizza, half a pizza, a full pizza, because you're going to have protein, you're going to have fats, you're going to have carbs. And that's what your body needs after teaching. You've got muscle damaged tissue, you're glycogen depleted in your muscles. All right, you need protein back in for muscle tissue. You need carbs back in because you just emptied the fuel tank. You've just busted your balls for 2 hours doing pump and attack, right? So how many calories is that? Yeah, lots, right? 800, 1,000 calories, whatever. Now you're going to go to sleep for 8 hours. This is your body's repair and recovery time. So out of meals of the day, you can maybe argue that one's probably the most important almost, okay? Because that's your downtime, your recharge. That's when all the nutrients around your body is going to get put into muscle tissue. And then, so go and have a pizza, have a 500-600 calorie sort of portion of pizza, have a bit of a side salad, have a soup with it. It's one of my kind of personal favorites. I have a vegetable soup to make sure I'm getting good nutrients in, and I'll have, my choice of kind of pizza. And it might not be like the so-called cleanest or perfect meal, but if I do that twice a week because I'm teaching late at night, it's an absolute winner, because the most important thing is I'm putting correct fuel back into my body, and I'm not going to feel like shit the next morning when I go teach or go train. And that's like the big light bulb moment. When people apply that, then the results and feedback kind of speaks for themselves. You're much better off to having a better, a more flexible approach that suits your lifestyle without trying to make it harder than it really needs to be. So it's not a free license to eat 10 McDonald's a day. It's not a free license to eat 10 Krispy Kremes a day. It's an approach and a bit of common sense, unfortunately. But it's really hard to sell common sense, because we've become a society where we jump, it was Atkins, and then do you remember when we all diagnosed ourselves as kind of celiacs, and we all went kind of gluten free? Well, that's kind of died a death. Yeah. Last year, 2018, 2019 was all about keto. That's kind of died a death. Nobody really knew what it was, but it sounded cool, didn't it? Because we all want to, we all want to belong to like a diet. We all want to, blame something because it's easier than actually just say, I just need to stop eating like a dick, and I just need to be a bit more accountable and eat for my lifestyle, I guess. So the common sense, sale conversion, education is quite a difficult one, because I haven't got a magic potion. I haven't got something that is going to be called, maybe I need to come up with a fancy name or something, but you know what I mean? It's
Timogenic.
Timogenic.
I'm gonna
plastic. I don't know.
I want to put something out there, because I use this analogy a lot of the time in things that I chat about, and said people now understand to get body fat loss reduction, they need to be in a calorie deficit. And I say to people, there's a difference between a calorie deficit and an energy deficit. And that's very, very specific to the individual, and that can vary massively through the week. So to pick up on something you just said, is if you're on a 300-400 calorie deficit through the week, like, you might be okay, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in terms of energy, but on Thursday, Friday, maybe even Saturday, you will get a massive, what I call the energy deficit, where you just don't have enough energy for you to function that day. And that's why the goal is, if you're wanting to lose weight, be in as big a calorie deficit as you can that does not affect your energy levels. For some people, that might be 10%. For some people, that could be 30%. For Monday, Tuesday, that could be 30%. But you know what? See, Thursday, Friday, you need to eat those calories back, because it's the overall picture through the week. So I'm just wondering what you kind of find in your own experience dealing with, I guess, energy levels compared to calorie deficit level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things there that I'm quite happy to literally tell any listener out there, because it is no big kind of secret, but this is generally what I do with 90% of my GFI clients, my one-to-one kind of clients that comes through, wants more energy, but ideally as like a secondary, tertiary sort of goal, would like to kind of lose a little bit of weight, just like to kind of firm up a little bit. Nothing drastic, that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is basically feeling for classes and having more energy. So what normally happens with an example that you've kind of used, and I'll liken it to the kind of muscle glycogen. So if you can imagine, or as you know, you can store up, 400 or 500 grams of like fuel, of muscle glycogen in your muscle cells. You can also store a little bit up in your kind of liver, but generally most of it's in your muscle tissue. So if you start off like after a big heavy weekend, you would generally start Monday quite kind of top. And I'm going to use my hands here. I don't know why, but again, imagine like a fuel tank that's kind of full. then you start on a deficit. So it's almost like a battery charge on your phone as well. Monday, 100%, right? Then you're going to deplete it down to say 20%, and then you're going to like charge it back up insufficiently because you want to stay on a deficit. So you charge it back up to say 80%, and then you use it another again, and you go down to 10%, and then you fill it back up on Wednesday, you go back up to 60%, right? And then it's not long before you reach Thursday or Friday, where now after your classes, you've reached like flatline, you reach 0%. Your phone battery is dead, okay? Your muscle glycogen level now has been continually sort of depleted and not replenished enough overnight or throughout the kind of day, because either you've been too restrictive or you've not had enough protein or carbs or whatever. Total calories isn't enough. So that's what can happen by kind of Thursday or sort of or Friday. And it's that appreciation of, as you said, total kind of calories throughout. So what I tend up kind of doing is, well, when I kind of create macros and total calories throughout the kind of day, I will always ask for a food diary and activity diary. Look at the biggest, most active kind of days. So if anybody's teaching 3 or 4 or 5 classes in a day, these days are going to be high carbohydrate days. There'll be protein in there, obviously. There'll be fats in there, obviously, but it's going to be high carb day. On the kind of like rest days, recovery days, slower days. So if it's like a complete rest day, it's a low calorie day. If it's a just a single body balance or a single aqua or maybe single CX works, or even just like maybe like a single pump or something like that. If it's a lower day, that day will be kind of lower. So over the week, they'll be literally on point or in a slight kind of deficit. And what I found is that if I start off with the first 4 weeks with my clients, literally aiming just to sort of maintain, okay? So not jumping to a calorie deficit straight away, just to sort of maintain them and get them compliant and hitting the macros consistently throughout the week. Because now they have adequate carbs, they're not burning muscle tissue. Because they have adequate protein now, they're repairing muscle tissue, so they have leaner body composition just because of that fact. They still have fats coming in for everything else. So in terms of health and fat, utilization, fat energy for aerobic and stuff, it's absolutely fine. And what we normally find in the first 4 weeks is that people end up saying, I'm feeling I have way more energy because they've just been a bit more accountable, which is obviously where like the big plus of one-to-one coaching comes into. They could be a bit more accountable. They're more consistent. They're free from the bullshit of not eating this food, being restrictive. So they've got a bit of free reign. You kind of treat people like an adult, and it actually works really kind of well, and without actually starting them off on like a deficit. Just because you've made a few tweaks and you're fueling adequately, they feel better, more energy, and they've lost a few pounds, and then if they have come from culture then we look to actually start reverse dieting them. So, start going back up the way to build up the calories. Because what you don't really want to be doing is becoming very, very efficient. You don't want to be able to do 4 classes off of 1,500 calories. It's not a great place to be in. And that, unfortunately, is what happens when a lot of clients have done from diet to diet to diet to diet, and they have not maybe eaten enough. They can probably get away, and the body's quite used to surviving off 800 calories. And that's simply because the metabolism will slow down, thyroid hormones, whatever else. So they're kind of like on a down slow. I liken it to hitting like the eco button on your car. A slower response, slow acceleration. It's just like, and it's kind of similar. So for some clients, I will put in like 2 or 3 lower kind of days and then like 3 or 4 kind of higher kind of days. And the big thing for them is to try to hit those numbers. Secondly, hit the macronutrient numbers within about 5 or 10%, as long as they're in the ballpark, because that food labels aren't 100% accurate. We know that MyFitnessPal is not 100% accurate. We know that our judgment of like portion size isn't 100% accurate. So there's no point being overly anal about, I need to eat 112.5 grams. As long as you're hitting between the 100 and 120 throughout the week as a 60, 70 kilo like female, I'm kind of happy. It's better than the 50 or 60 that's used to kind of have. And then month 2, 3, and 4, then we either start reverse dieting. We can start, looking at whatever kind of goals we kind of need. But it's that's the way I kind of sort of do it. If there is going to be like a calorie kind of focus sort of weight loss, I spend the first 4 weeks more just kind of matching calories for kind of output, looking at the lifestyle kind of changes first, picking 2 separate low calorie days so they don't have that kind of constant low draining kind of effect. And yeah, it seems to work. It seems to work quite kind of well.
What really jumped the mind there is what will happen when you start to put people on, you said like the first month is kind of like maintenance level calories and macros, just get them eating kind of quote unquote good food for that person. And you said they'll still drop a few pounds. And the reason for any listeners who's maybe confused about that, well, if they're on maintenance calories, how will they drop a few pounds, a few kilograms? Well, mainly because they'll feel energized. They'll probably get more out of their workouts. So they'll actually put their body in a calorie deficit from working harder, but eating more. And that's, back to what was said earlier in the podcast, that's the quick wins. That's the low hanging fruit. If you feel better and you can feel more energetic and put more energy into a training session, you will actually burn more calories. So you will get more, quote unquote gains, whatever gains are to you and your particular training plan. So I think that's really important. You said two things I want to do, just so as people understand this, because I think this is it's starting to get a little bit popular, and it's these intra-carb shakes, these intra-carb drinks that we can have. So I want to give people an analogy that you can talk about here is, if I'm teaching 3 classes in a row, let's say 6 to 9 o'clock, I'm going to do pump, attack, and combat. Imagine I'm doing all 3 of those classes. Wow, what a night that would be.
Can't wait.
What is an intra-carb shake drink? What are the benefits, and kind of when should you take it?
So I think somebody asked you a question about it a good few months ago, and I think the question was, is it necessary? And that question, as you kind of know, is really, really hard to actually answer straight away, because it all depends, and again, it's that unsexy approach. When somebody asks you a question and you're like, well, I'm going to need like 5 questions off of you so I can actually give you the kind of most applicable and correct answer, because a lot of the time it's not kind of yes or just no. It all just depends. So where an intra-carb drink can be really useful, say if somebody is going to try aim for, 3 or 4 grams per kilogram body weight as the carb source. So say you're going to aim for like 250 grams of carbs, okay? Now, if you're being really quite restrictive, if you look at like a food diary, a lot of times people, because of fearing carbs and fruits and all this kind of stuff, will be well short. So say they're hitting 150, okay, and you're like, right, at the moment you're having 150 grams of carbs. I want to try and get you to 250, but let's think about small goals. Let's think about, for the next 4 weeks or the next month, let's just try and get you to 200, and that's totally fine, right? Small goals, right? Next month, another 20, another 50, whatever. So if you can eat an extra 50 grams of carbs, by having, say, a bigger breakfast or take a banana along with you, or some raisins, or that cream rice that I really love, whatever. If you can eat an extra 50 grams, then beautiful, right? That's first port of call. That's our starting point. Ideally, of course, they're going to be high nutrition kind of carbs if they can be. But again, don't fear, the donut or jelly baby if need be. But let's get you to 200 grams first, because that's going to put you in the right place. Now, if somebody is like, you know what, I just don't have the time. I feel really full with my other food choices, blah, blah, blah. So I just don't have the time. I don't have the prep, but I really, really need more energy. I'll be all right. Well, here's a plan B. This is what you can do as an easy win. Why not drink 50 grams of carbs, throughout the kind of day, right? An intra drink literally is very, very similar to like your Lucozade, your Gatorade. Those drinks that sports people have to provide energy when they kind of need it at a high intensity level. Guess what you're doing when you're doing pump, attack, and combat? Yeah, high intensity, high endurance, explosive movements, working in the anaerobic energy system. Carbs, you are draining carbs out your body at a fast rate. So to replenish and increase your blood glucose level, glucose in your bloodstream to your muscle tissues to provide ATP. ATP is the energy currency of the body. If I remember correctly, I think for every 1 glucose molecule you get 36 ATP. So it's the fuel that you need. It's a quick turnover, all right? Much faster than the kind of fat route for energy and converting into kind of ATP. Anyway, so you're gonna have like 50 grams of fuel across the 3 hours. So you can have like, I want to maybe have, you can divide it up into different bottles. You can have every class, every hour, just say maybe 15 or 20 grams, but you're getting in calories, you're getting in fuel that you need. So after the day, now you, Mr. Ricky Long, you've now had 150 grams of food, carbs. You've had 50 grams of like intra-carb drinks.
Yeah.
So you're now closer to where you need to be. You will feel better. You'll recover better. Your classes will be better. It's a win-win. And as I said a few times on other videos I've done, most of the kind of drinks will also have electrolytes. And electrolytes are very, very, very handy. You know, when you sweat, you as we all know, if you've ever done pump, attack, combat, or literally any Les Mills class, we sweat a lot as instructors, okay? So you're losing electrolytes. And why electrolytes are important, it's all to do with chemical reactions, to do with like the central nervous system, to do with memory, coordination, all this kind of stuff. So when you get a memory, brain fart, when you get cramp, all that kind of stuff, it's because you're low in electrolytes, okay? So having a drink that's high in electrolytes is really, really handy as you're sweating. It's like a win, 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 and a win, because it's cheap, it's easy, it makes common sense almost to kind of go down that route. Now, if your diet is absolutely spot on, if your diet is like a professional sports athlete where you have great foods, great prep all the time, you probably won't need an intra-carb drink or electrolytes. But if you are struggling for energy, if you're short on time, if you're looking for the easy wins, then yes, it can be very, very, useful.
Yeah, and it's that analogy that I love the battery analogy that you kind of use. So I'm going to steal it now, and I'm also going to steal it for future social media posts and hashtag it RickFit.
So you reference me and you're fine.
So for the listeners, imagine like if you're doing those 3 classes, maybe you're an instructor doing them, or maybe you're a participant doing them, is water just doesn't quite cut it for that duration of time. Even if your diet is really, really good, even if your diet is kind of as perfect as perfect can be, is you'll get to the 60-minute, the 90-minute mark, and your glycogen levels in your muscles will be completely depleted by that point. They will need topped up. And if you can reach for a Lucozade, a Powerade, anything with electrolytes in it, or, I'm using the sports, the SIS gels.
Yeah.
That like you can buy them in Tesco's, and it's not a drink. It's literally just a gel that you would just take. Obviously, everybody knows I'm now an endurance athlete. So when I get to that 60-minute mark, on Tuesday, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be doing at least 3 hours on the bike. So I'm going to have 2 of those gels at the 60-minute mark. One of those gels is getting knocked into me. And at the 120-minute mark, those gels are going in. And yes, I know there's a certain amount of psychological, I've just had energy. I feel better.
Sure.
I can cycle harder from teaching a class. I can jump higher. But the psychological wins are just as good as the physiological wins. So this is something I would never have thought of when I was teaching 3 classes, because hey, I'm just teaching 3 classes. But all of a sudden, I'm now stepping into endurance sport as opposed to endurance exercise, endurance fitness rather is what I should have said there. Is now I'm actually starting to look at it, and I kind of think back. Well, I wonder how much of a difference that would have made when I was teaching the 12 classes a week, when I was doing the 3 classes back to back, to in between pump and attack, just instead of having a water bottle, actually have an electrolyte, one of those soluble tablets you can just put in. I know how much of a difference that would have made back then, and how much I would have been able to train harder in that class. Perhaps I would have got more fitness gains myself, and I would have been more alert in those classes. So I think that's a big thing for fitness instructors right now, to start thinking more. You are an athlete. You're not a fitness. Yes, you're a fitness professional, but more so, you need to treat your body like you're an athlete, because we're doing as much as the athletes, and we don't get 4 months a year off and get the holiday in nice warm countries. We get 2 weeks off maximum, and even those 2 weeks we're still going to cover classes, because let's face it, we've nothing better to do. So you've got to treat your body like a machine, like a top athlete as best as possible.
Yeah, 100%, mate. That's the big kind of thing, and it's difficult, and I really empathize, and I totally see it, because I was a participant and I went as a fitness instructor and all that kind of stuff as well. So I totally get it, where the majority of our fitness instructors were once, general population participants. That's how our journey kind of began. So we might teach 6, 12, 18, 20 classes a week, and everything is, professional. We do this, we do our CPD, we do this, we do our modules, all that kind of stuff. But the mindset and approach is still thinking GFI diet, not GFI diet, beg your pardon, general population diet. We still liken ourselves too much towards overweight, sedentary individual. We haven't quite made that switch now when you start teaching anything up, even above like 4, 5, 6 classes, that we are now definitely more athlete. But when I use the term athlete nutrition, you can just tell it's like it's a blank receiving into instructors, because they just don't think of themselves being an athlete. But you know, for the classes that we do, Les Mills are hard classes for anybody that's come from a sports background as well. You know, endurance training, the CrossFit Wars kind of stuff, the rugby pre-seasons that I know of, and if you do like crazy endurance stuff, you know, all that training, the stuff we do in a Les Mills studio, in a Les Mills class, is hard graft. You're damaging your body. You're putting your body through the mill frequently throughout the week, but we're not getting that blood test on a Monday morning that the professional rugby players get. They don't get the prep meals and foods in a nice cafeteria that the professional footballers do. They go around a football pitch in the morning, swinging their legs and clapping their hands and like all this kind of nonsense. We're out there doing tuck jumps and kicks and burpees, right? In comparison to a professional footballer, we're way ahead. We're more like the endurance cyclist, the endurance swimmer, you know, that kind of intensity, you know. So yeah, we just need to make that sort of connaissance fact, and something like an intra-carb drink with a bit of electrolytes, to me, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's almost, and I don't want to push it kind of too much, because then it sounds like you're kind of leading the supplement charge and you're not really looking after food. But you've got to ask yourself the question, like, am I going to get enough carbs in today? Am I going to eat my 250 grams? You know, yes or no? No. Well, I'll eat 200, but what I will have is maybe 30 grams from a drink, and then 20 grams from like a donut, or 20 grams from like Jelly Babies. Hey, you're hitting 250 out of 250. You are now correctly and adequately fueling your body. You will not feel sore. You'll not feel as whatever else. So, you know, carbs is like the way to kind of go. For carbs is, out of the macronutrients, is the one that's activity dependent. Mm-hmm. If you know what I mean. If you're really lowly activity, yeah, you don't need carbs as much, because you can make glucose from protein. All right. So, you know, it's fine. But if you're super active, particularly with heart rates above 70%, 75%, like we have in Les Mills, you're burning carbs like nothing. It's like a blowtorch. You know what I mean? It's like just blowing through your fuel source. You need to top that up, man. Whether it's a battery charge analogy, whether it's a car fuel tank analogy, you know, and that's where the scaremongering about insulin and sugars and carbs and potatoes and, you know, is damaging to us, because it's actually preventing us from having the mindset and application of actually just thinking, I can have a sandwich, I can have a baked potato, I can have some cereal, you know, I have some fruits, I can have some vegetables, you know, a wide range of calories in it that have adequate carbs, and you're on to an absolute winner. It's just getting people to almost have that trust, you know, when they kind of work with either one of us, you know, it's just having that kind of trust of like, right, okay, I'm going to go with this crazy notion of eating more fuel will actually kind of help me. Although, if you know what I mean. So it's just a little bit of trust.
Yeah. I think the message there for everyone listening to this is what will always come first will be your overall calories, what you're putting in compared to what you're putting out, whether that's your scheduled exercise or your non-scheduled exercise. And then after that, it's your proteins are important. Now, we spoke about proteins in the last podcast, so I won't go into it too much, but it's your carbs that give you that energy. And that's where that sentence of, Tim, I want to work with you because I don't have energy to teach classes. Well, it's going to be your carb factor and what you're having in. That's going to be what's kind of, because if you've got your calories in the right place, you got your proteins in the right place, and you still don't have your energy in the right place, well, it's probably going to be something to do with what those calories from, those calories from carbs is that you're doing. And it's those quick wins. And if you do look, for anyone listening, look at your week and look, when are you really, really energetic? I.e., what days do you teach the most classes? If it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're going to need to eat more those days. And if you don't teach a lot of classes on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you can afford to go into a bigger calorie restriction those days. Going into a calorie restriction Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is probably not going to serve you very, very well long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And what I'll kind of say for everybody, I mean, if there's going to be maybe like one statement, out of all my rants that I've kind of said in the last, whatever, half hour, 60 minutes, is performance and recovery macronutrients. That's protein and carbs, right? Those two macronutrients is where you will get your performance and your recovery from, aka energy from. So get them sorted. Protein and kind of carbs is where it's at. You will pick up fats if you eat a wide-based variety of foods, whether it's plants or glucose, you will pick up fats along the way. Fats is not the issue as a group fitness instructor. You will get, as long as you're eating 40 grams and above throughout the whole day, you're totally fine in terms of like fat intake. It's protein and carbs is where it's at. That's where you'll get the biggest changes in performance, energy, recovery, without question. Without question. It's a bold statement, but 100%.
Proteins and carbs is where that is going to be the podcast title, mate. Just very, very conscious of time for the purpose. So just want to remind people where that podcast is. Let me start that sentence again. Where that webinar is, or rather, when is it? I can't talk. When is the webinar, Tim?
The webinar is this coming week, Friday and Sunday, and it will be sent out to every Lesmos UK instructor, I guess, in the following week. What day, I'm not too sure. However, it will definitely be getting sent to your email inbox. So definitely keep a lookout. But obviously, you can find me on Lesmos UK official page. You can find me, obviously, my own kind of Instagram kind of channel and profile there as well. So if anything that has maybe triggered something, or you got a question or a thought, either post it up on the Lesmos UK official page, hit me a direct message on Instagram, whatever. I can give Ricky an email address as well, whatever. Just don't be shy in kind of reaching out. Nutrition is a huge, huge topic, and having a 1 hour webinar is great, but by the time we do a little bit of cleaning up with the start, the end, and the polls, the questions, it's really going to give me about 30-40 minutes of actual kind of content delivery. And I'm well aware that everybody's got different circumstances, different questions. So, if there's something that's kind of like, oh, well, what about that? Well, I heard about this, or what's your thoughts on this? Then you just got to get in touch with, just reach out. I can't help unless you kind of pose a question and sort of, get in touch. So, it's not going to be just a one-off kind of thing. I'm hoping to try and obviously keep helping instructors where I possibly can for as long as possibly can, because I think there's a need for it. The scaremongering, myth busting has always grind my gears. There's always been, a big kind of passion of mine to kind of just literally empower, educate, try to entertain now and again, but literally just try to put those big messages across, to really kind of help and serve, as opposed to, scare people or put fear into people about different foods. So yeah.
Perfect. And for instructors listening, if you haven't booked on yet, I know there are limited spaces, but you can book on. It's just through your portal. It's how you would book on for your quarterly workshop webinars, for your quarterly workshops and all those events. So just look that way. And then final two questions, Tim, these are the new questions I ask at the end of all podcasts. What is the last book you read, and who would you recommend it for?
Well, I've just finished reading a book via a podcast, and I'm sure you're well familiar with it. It's called Leaders Eat Last.
I always do that. Eaters lead last.
Eaters eat last? I'm like, doesn't make sense. No, it's called Leaders Eat Last. It's by a chap called Simon Sinek, I think is pronounced his surname, American lad. All about leadership development, personal stuff, relationships, and everything else. Been following it for a long, long time. The book is quite a lengthy one. It's taken me a while to kind of get through it. I'm now in chapter 26 out of, I think, 28, so I'm nearly done. But loads taken away from it. So vital. It's a cross between pivotal and vital. It's so vital, I think, for anybody, not anybody that might see themselves as like a leader. I think as GFIs, we are leaders, essentially, if we're in a workplace. Although you may not be like the manager, but you're still a leader of the team. You still need to work in a team. You report to somebody, you report to colleagues. It's the interworking relationship. There is so much value there, literally for anybody. I can think of a few companies that would benefit from reading it personally. But I think literally anyone who's interested in, working better with other people, improving relationships, whether it's personal, whether it's business, And if you do have a small team around you, or if you are a GFI, you are the kind of leader. It is quite kind of worthwhile. I'll definitely recommend it.
Such a good book. I've read it, listened to it twice, and I've literally started his third book. It's kind of like a series he's done. So he did Start With Why, maybe about 2009, and then he did Leaders Eat Last, which is the book we're talking about. And it was literally last week, his third book come out of that kind of series is the Infinite Game. So I started it this morning. I'm 2.5 hours into it, and the first couple of chapters are just so fantastic. He does lean a lot on, Leaders Eat Last. So I think that's a really, really kind of prerequisite to the Infinite Game. But Simon Sinek, if you listen to this and you don't follow Simon Sinek on social media and consume all the podcasts that he's been on, like you are missing out on some amazing content. And he did this brilliant one. He was talking about innovation for the sake of innovation.
Yeah.
So like as humans, and the technology is about innovating, but what we're in danger of doing is innovating for the sake of innovating. So he uses the example of, a projector screen. Mm-hmm. So 10 years ago, to get a projector screen to work, you grab the string and pull the string down. That was it. Projector screen worked. Everybody was happy. And then about 5 years ago, they replaced string with buttons. So you go and press the button to generate the power for the screen to come down. And what happens with buttons and electricity? It breaks. So you don't have your projector screen anymore. And it's innovating for the sake of innovating. And you used the example earlier, actually, when you're talking about a car and you hit the eco button on the car.
Yeah.
All our cars right now have all these buttons. And what happens if these buttons break and your electronics break? You can't do anything in your car anymore.
Yeah. He's just got such, like, when I go to cook, I don't know what I can't speak. About real life application, like he talks about stuff that you can relate to and that you see every day. So it's not like he obviously references CEOs every now and again, all that kind of stuff, but it's literally stuff that you see every day. And that one chapter yesterday, he talked about like millennials, the baby boomers and stuff, about distraction and the link between distraction or so what might be incorrectly diagnosed ADHD, the attention deficit order. Mm-hmm. He's actually put a case forward for saying, like, actually, it's more a case of distraction and dopamine and all these chemicals that we receive off of social media, and the addiction that we have now of social media. And it's the comparison highlight reel. And he talks about the kind of chemical things that they're going back on our head. He talks about why certain companies, the carrot and the stick approach, and then the this approach, all that kind of stuff. And, when we'll have meetings about meetings, we'll have reports about reports, and we talk, but nobody's actually willing to lead. There's lack of accountability, which links into like things like nutrition and leadership and whatever else, So he gives real life examples that you can see, you can apply. The one about, addiction and phones and iPads to like young children and like teenagers is scarily true, and as a dad to a toddler that's nearly turning 2 in December, like I'm well aware of that kind of stuff, but it's even more aware now of how we disengaging creativity for the short-term fix of tapping a screen looking for a reaction. Volume goes up, don't like it, change the channel. And we're an instant gratification society, and that's where nutrition doesn't happen, because we want it now. Because if you don't like something, like if you want to watch something, you got YouTube, you got Netflix, you got everything else, right? If you want to anything's at your fingertips. You want food, dial up Deliveroo or whatever else. You want this, you go here. You want this, you go here. I want to read a book, podcast. We're a society now of instant gratification. You want a date or kind of get your end away, Tinder, right? You want this, you want this, you want this. You want somebody to come out and fix your tires, phone call away, somebody does that. Yeah. So we've taken away the appreciation that we need to take steps, that we need to learn, we need to develop, we need to be patient, So yeah, he's a mind opener. Is that even the right word? He opens up your minds.
We're getting to that point. We've been online here for well over an hour now, so we're kind of just getting to that. Our words are not making sense when they get from our brain to our mouth.
It's low blood glucose, mate. That's what it is.
That's it. We need to go top up. And then finally, the last one. This is always a good one. Any purchases under £100 that have made amazing impact in your life?
Well, this one's going to be a bit of a left park one, to be fair, because I'm not overly like a overly kind of gadgety guy or anything like that. So I'm not really purchasing anything that's made a huge difference. But I'll tell you what, just based on what happened in the last few weeks with my young girl, the purchase that I have made recently has brought me happiness, I guess, in that kind of silly parental way, is that baby pack carrier, like the rucksack that you put the child in the back and then off you go. That and the combination of a pair of waterproof trousers and a pair of wellies that she got given by Siobhan and Amy. You may know, obviously, Tisha Polker. So that combination now has enabled us to go walking into the parks, finding puddles, and just causing absolute mayhem, as often as I can, literally. So the fact that I can put it into my back, go for long walks out, anywhere and everywhere, make sure she's got the waterproof leggings on, put the wellies on, and it's literally, hours of entertainment, just watching her stamp her feet in the puddles. And obviously I get the kind of daddy stuff where I've got to stamp my feet in the puddles. So I've got my fire wellies on as well, and off we go to the park and just, and it sounds really silly, but that's brought immense joy, because it kind of gives me a reason for everything we kind of do. It's a highlight, it's quality time. It's time away from the phone. It's time away from TV and everything else, from hustle and bustle, and it's just a nice hour, 2 hours where into the woods, next to a river, find a couple of puddles on the slides, wrap up warm, beanie on their head, and just have a bit of quality time with the wee one. And it's best £100 I've ever spent, mate. Yeah. Best £100 I've ever spent.
Puddles are the new iPhone.
Yeah, totally, mate. Totally. Get out there and explore. It's good fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to hear the feedback and how the webinars go. And I'll put everything people need to know in the show notes. So thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem, mate. No problem. It's been a pleasure as always. So anytime.
Good, mate. Thank you, and I'll catch you on the other side of the stop button.
You're listening to the Ricky Long Podcast.
Guys, really hope you got high value out of that. I know I did. There's a host of links in the show notes you can follow Tim. If you're a Les Mills instructor, you can go to your Les Mills portal, see if you can get booked on to one of these webinars. I've already told you at the start about the Only Just Fit Summit, specifically for fitness professionals. I've told you about the Christmas Shred. It's going to be a 6-week training plan between now and Christmas to get you in shape for Christmas, feeling good, happy, confidence, positivity. I've told you about Podium for Sport, the sponsored podcast. They sponsor me for the Ironman, and their Instagram page is Podium for Sport. That is pretty much everything I can throw at you. I need to go. I need you to get on with your day. I need you to have a fantastic day. Remember, if you do an Instagram story screenshot, I love you and I will come round your house and lick your forehead. Probably not, but I really do love you. Episode number 60 of the Ricky Long Podcast. Signed, sealed, and delivered.
You are listening to the Ricky Long Podcast, where international fitness entrepreneur Ricky Long answers your questions and interviews fitness leaders on training, nutrition, and mindset. Be sure to leave a review on iTunes.